So in this video, we're going to use raster design to insert some raster data and correlate it. So here I have a drawing with some COGO points. These are from survey. We've got some property corners and some other data. It actually is, this was based on GPS. So it's state plane coordinates. They're pseudo state plane. It just comes from a GPS device. If I look at the drawing settings, it does have a coordinate system on it, state plane. So because it has a coordinate system, one nice thing about that is we can go to the new Geolocation tab. This is new in I think 15. And I can get an idea if this is overlaying at all. And you can see I can see house corners and porch corners. It's not exact, but the imagery is not exact, and this is not tied to any high order control or anything like that. So at least we know we're in the neighborhood. So now I'm going to go to the Raster Tools, which are right here on the ribbon, since Raster Design's installed. And starting from the left, I'm going to go to Insert an Image. I want to pick a scan plat. So this was available from the county here. And I want to make sure and toggle Insertion Wizard so I get all my options. So I'm going if this image was already correlated and had some type of world file, I could pick it here and find the anchor point. But I'm just going to hit Next because none of this really applies. Now on the third tab, just as a side note, my drawings state plane. Let's say I had an image that was already correlated and it was defined as UTM maybe. In that case, I can toggle this and I can transform the image from the UTM and it'll do the best it can to transform it to the state plane. So that's a nice feature of raster design also. On the last tab, I'm just going to click Pick because it has no coordinates. And now it asks for the rotation 0, and I'm just going to scale out just roughly into the drawing, hit Finish, and now it's attached. Now one place I can take a look at the attachment is just by clicking on it. I have some options here for clipping, brightness, contrast. I can show hide, and I can also make background transparent. So right now the black is transparent, so if that image, the Bing imagery or any other image was on, I could see through the black. So I'll leave that on. Hit Escape. And also another place to see settings of the image is right here on the Manage. This manages all your raster inserts. So if I can click on here, it tells me this image is a 2-color bitonal. And on the second tab, I can see the color values, and I can right click to edit color map, and I could actually change the colors of my bitonal raster. Okay. So how do we match this up over here? Well, we have a few tools. We have match, rubber sheet. I can do move, scale, and rotate manually, however I like. I personally, in this case, because I have CAD scale, I'm not needing to warp this image. It's, like I said, it has good scale. It's a plat that was done for survey. I'm just going to use the Autocad Align command. So I'm going to go Align, select the image. First source point, I know at this image point I have a monument, property corner, so I click there. And what I'm going to do is turn off my snap. Snaps is okay to use if everything's at the same elevation. You just got to be careful because Align will use your 3D dimensions, so you either need to snap 2D only, lock your Z, or you either need to turn the snap off if you're doing this type of operation. Because all these COGO, this was a topo done at this particular survey also, so all these have elevations. So I'm just going to click. It's an image anyway, so I don't really need the snap in this case. And I know I have another monument back here that matches up with this point. There we go. Now, if it made sense, I could do a third point, but it doesn't really here. So I'm going to hit Enter for continue, and it says, do you want to scale about those points? I want to type Y for yes. And it should align the image, basically spin the thing, monument to these, and rotate the best that it can. Okay, so no warping or anything like that. So for warping, with the rubber sheeting, just as a side note, I'm just going to insert another image here quickly. This is basically a survey of this property. So if I went to rubber sheet, it asked me which one do I want a rubber sheet. I picked that one. So this is the command for that. And basically what we need to do, and this is not a good one to do, but what we basically do is pick the known points that we have by adding points, and it's basically the same thing, source and destination. I can say, okay, well this point is here, it matches up to here. Second source point, we can say here's that back corner we already identified. There we go. And it'd really be better if we had more to do a rubber sheet. You know, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to, well, we need at least 3 because this is a triangular. So I'll just rough in and say, here's the top of that easement, which is here, the actual corner. And then I'll hit D for done. And you can see the points. And I can do a preview. And it'll show me how it's going to try to fit that over there. And I'll escape to exit. So the thing about the rubber sheet is we have to be very careful. We need really good strength of figure. So if we were doing this plat, we would need a lot more points because this is just one little piece of this plat. We would need a lot of points across this job for it to rubber sheet. One side note on the rubber sheet, it does have ability to anchor. So most of the time you would move and scale and rotate points that are in good shape in one small area. And then the places that you need to warp a lot of times are away from maybe where a survey was done on a very old survey. And I can rubber sheet the extents and stretch the extents to fit, like an old topo quad or a very old FEMA flood map, for example. Okay, so I'm just going to detach this image. So now that I have this correlated, if I want to save this plat for future use, I can just hit save, but that just saves the image and it'll remember settings that I changed, but not really where it is because it wasn't correlated to begin with. So we got a couple different ways to do this. You see, I could save a world file. I can save as. That doesn't give me the world file option. What I like to do is image export. And so I'm going to pick new plat. I'll just call it new plat. And notice, even though this was a TIFF, I could actually change that at this time. Okay, I want to stay with a TIFF, but just want you to see that. I'm going to type export. And here's where I've got some decisions to make on the way to encode it. And you can read more about this, but it talks about the preferred methods of encoding that. I'm just going to leave that default. And then typically I do tiles for larger images. It tells you here. Next. And then here's where we get to add our correlation. So it says, all right, I don't want to maintain a link to the drawing, but I want to include in the correlation the rotation, and I want to save a world file. Notice I can actually burn a header in the GeoTIFF, make a GeoTIFF with the correlation in the header. But I've just had better luck with the world file over the years. So we're going to hit finish. Okay, so we're done. So I can detach this guy. And let's just test. So I pretend I'm user 2 here coming in. And I'm just going to insert. New plat. Insertion wizard. Okay. And notice that it's already trying to, like it sees the world file and it's already trying to correlate it. Now we can always override the correlation source. One thing I found with some data that I pulled online that you'll find correlation in the image file and it'll have a world file. So you can flip here and decide which is working. You know, even if I didn't have data as a backdrop, usually you can look at your anchor, your lower left, and see, okay, this is in my state plane, it's somewhere near. So these values will help you here. So I can hit next. See how it saved all that data. There's no transformation needed. It's the same system. And then finish. There we go. So that's inserting with raster. But what if someone wants to use our map workspace, so our other insertion tools? So let's go to map task pane here, right on the home tab. Hit enter for own. A lot of people connect to rasters this way, and that's fine. Let's connect to this guy, see if it works. New plat, TIFF, open, connect. So you can see I just clicked add to map, and you can see I didn't do well with my colors. I didn't look at my settings there, I just connected to it. But even without setting, I don't have to set the coordinate system, because remember, a world file correlation doesn't store, it just stores coordinates. So I really wasn't worried because I knew the world file was in the same spot. But again, just like Raster Design, this tool, it'll know how to translate between two systems. So if I went to edit coordinate system, I could say the default here, like if it was UTM, because again, the world file is not going to know that. The world file just knows it's just numerical values. And so if you know that the world file is UTM, but your drawing's in state plane like this, you could set it here under edit and let it transform. But here we didn't even need to worry about assigning the coordinate system, because we knew that the values in the world file matched the job's coordinate system. So I hope this helps. This concludes the insert and correlate raster in Raster Design.